Hopefully I'm not biting off more than I can chew here, but I figure it's worth a shot either way. So today's video is going to concern two shows instead of one. Rosario+Vampire and Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka are on the chopping block today, and I'm just the guy to chop away at them. So why these two shows? Well, they're both in the same genre of magical girlfriend harem and show some striking similarities to each other. While they're of course different shows cosmetically, at their core they're exceptionally similar because they are of course genre pieces. And I really, really hate both of them. So let's get started with the earlier made one, Rosario+Vampire. So what do you get when you take the standard magical girlfriend show and stuff it full of monster girls and panty shots? I'm not sure either, but I seem to have watched it. What is it about these shows that make them sell well enough to get an anime adaptation anyway? Is it because aside from the intense labor needed to produce them, they're relatively easy to script and put together? Because this show certainly doesn't seem like it brings anything new to the table, except maybe a bunch of extra terms for deviant art and gelboru. Was there really such a dearth of pink-haired girls and short skirts and big boobies as search tags? Well, like it or not, here they are. So you may have noticed if you've watched a lot of anime that, for the most part, shows with a manga counterpart tend to be better plotted than the ones that are just made for TV. This is, of course, because the show that doesn't have a manga behind it just sort of happens, in contrast to a show with a solid spine of a manga. Yes, even Venus vs. Virus had a stable plot to it, lispy and flimsy though it may have been. So that being the case, it makes sense to see so many manga get turned into an anime, and I should say that just because it's better doesn't mean it's good. But structurally, it's more sound than, say, Angel Beats. Speaking of shows with too many characters and not enough foresight, Rosario+Vampire is the story of Skune, a useless idiot with no redeeming qualities, who somehow manages to draw monster girls to him like a magnet. He's been accepted into Yokai Academy, where monsters learn how to blend in, despite not being a monster at all. This should strike you as immediately problematic, because most of these monsters are not the haha how cute kind, but the prey on humans and make sausages out of them kind. What is a boy to do? Well, if you guess die the minute he gets off the bus, you clearly haven't seen enough anime. But yes, he runs into Mocha Akashiya, a vampire girl with a body that probably doesn't exist in nature, and hair down to her butt. But don't think that gets in the way of showing off her ass at every chance they can find.
Oh man, it was just a bad...
Mocha is a vampire, and that's about as much characterization as she's allowed, other than having a split personality. Most of the characters in the show are actually just wireframes to put monster type, archetypes, and bust sizes onto. Ta-da! Instant character! The song Instant Music by The Pillows comes to mind. You see, in that song they bemoan the sort of ready-made, disposable pop stars that the music industry produces, and I feel roughly the same way about Mocha and these folk here. They're really quite disposable if I don't remember anything about them other than their power and how big their tits are. So, no, the characters aren't that appealing to me. There might have been a time in my life when this show would have appealed to the dirty old man side of me, but frankly now, I just find it clumsy and pandering to flash a bit of booty and call that a character. So we've got the cutesy one with big boobs, the horny one with big boobs, the little girl because we have to pander to the pedo crowd, and the quiet one with, you guessed it, big boobs. I see a pattern forming and it ends in back problems. Oh, and they all want to bang Skune. Why? Because characters with no personality or skills are clearly the most sexy.
Oh, baby.
Care to weigh in on this one?
Only that I have more personality in my pinky than Mocha has in her whole stupid wiggly body.
Well, wiggly though it may be, you're not exactly Miss Flat as a Board yourself.
Yeah, but you don't see me flipping skirt and flopping over your lazy long-haired ass. Even if I did, at least you have some brains under that stupid hat of yours. At least I think you do. You haven't drowned in your own spit, after all. And when it comes to characters like Skune, who's Captain Average personified, I have to wonder what the draw is. And of course, it's not girls who read this sort of manga primarily, so a character that would be right at home in the background of School Rumble is a perfect protagonist for a show primarily about demonstrating how good Gonzo is at drawing panties.
Funny you should mention that. I just happen to have a little ditty prepared.
What? Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, yes!
Ass, 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 stop. Now make that motherfucker hammer tone like. Go stupid, go stupid, so stupid. Don't do it.
You really just did that. You really did. Though, I suppose I can't argue with that when the evidence is right in skirt flipping in front of me. Just makes me glad it was drawn wearing pants.
Yeah, I had a feeling by this point you'd be appreciating that. So let's take a look-see at Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka. I would say second verse same as the first, but Ayumu is different in that he's dead. Yes, not only did he get a bevy of beauties around him, but he managed to do it while being stone fucking dead. Man, I thought Skune was a loser. But yes, he's a Dorcas Maximus that makes me pine for strong, manly men like Akito Tenkawa.
My poor Joe! He sacrificed himself! All the humanity!
So he's got Lady Hellscythe, a super powerful mage, Haruka, the magical garment girl who he's stolen the powers from, Maelstrom, who determines that they need to get hitched, and this crazy vampire ninja named Seraphim who can't stop being a complete dick to him. Yeah, vampire ninja, you heard me right. Gee, I wonder how they came up with that one. Did they roll some dice and hope for the best? 次のキャラクターは何ですか? Ninja. そうですか. They start getting into all sorts of wacky misadventures while fighting off supernatural threats, and then suddenly, pow! Ayumu has to kill a woman like 6 times by cutting her up with a chainsaw. This was the turning point for me in the series, where I just had to say no. Not that I was so gung-ho to give this a high score in the first place, but the manner in which it was portrayed was just a bit too far away from the comedic violence for me to take it as anything less than some serious saw shit here. And in spite of the silliness they tried to inject back into the show, it never really recovered for me. I draw the line at semi-realistic chainsaw violence. Go figure. This show is like Rosario+Vampire's mean-spirited cousin, because everything in it is really like a foul-tempered spin on the supernatural girlfriend genre. What other many sins does this show commit? Well, for starters, the vampire ninja keeps shouting "swallow return strike" on things that are clearly not a swallow return strike. They literally run out of plot by the 12th episode, and the final episode breaks down into a swimsuit singing competition. I'd say you have to see it to believe it, but let's face it, you don't need to see it. Apparently, the more powerful you are as a magical garment girl, the cuter your outfit, and by God, that's nauseatingly cute. Oh, didn't I mention that there is some cross-dressing involved? Yeah, not only is Ayumu a loser, but then he gets covered with pink and petticoats as a bonus.
Oh, and as an added bonus, you get to see a girl who's flat as a board, naked every time she tries to transform. I'm beginning to think the people who complain that anime is nothing but blood and nudity might be onto something.
Yeah, I'm beginning to pine for the mid-90s.
Oh crap, should I call an ambulance? We need 20 episodes of Re-Earth, stat!
Back to Rosario+Vampire, the whole show is a real sleepwalk. The crux of the issues in these episodes are mostly, I don't belong because I'm a monster girl. Which is kind of stupid because they're at the school for monsters, because they are monsters, and need to be with other monsters. Now I know I might seem like I'm stretching a bit, but why is it that it takes them a human male to guide them into proper ways of being and to stop being so predatory? But then I suppose no one would ever accuse Japan of being the most progressive in gender roles. So yes, these girls fall stupidly, desperately in love with Skune. Why? Because he was nice to them once, or because he tastes good, or some shit. I understand it's not exactly supposed to be a realistic interpretation of how relationships work, but this is just reinforcing that weird nice guy stereotype. You know the one I'm talking about, the sort of loser who uses friend zone unironically. By the way, if you haven't heard it from most people on the web about how stupid the idea of the friend zone is, well, then I'll give it to you. If you believe in the friend zone, you're a tit, and you probably don't deserve the friendship of the women you're trying desperately to trick into fucking you. But if you're a well-adjusted, sensible human being, forget I said anything. So can you tell me one thing that this show does differently than any dumb hair... Oh boy, is that guy being crucified?
Well, that's new. Care to weigh in?
Alright, history lesson time. So let me put forward that when the Christians were kicked out of Japan in the 1600s, one of the biggest things that Christianity left behind was that crucifixion was a very nasty way to get killed. And it certainly hasn't gotten any more pleasant since then. And while there's not a history of imagery associated with crosses over there, there most certainly is one in the States. And being a mostly homogenous society over there, it's easy for them to forget that racial violence is still quite fresh in the minds of most Americans. But you may be thinking to yourself, gee, Prof, it's not exactly like they make this stuff with Americans in mind. Well, no, but that's where this little thing called context kicks in. Context is the way you see the world and shapes how you react to stimuli, particularly media. If, for example, you were someone who lives in the Midwestern United States, particularly a state that has been known to be a hotbed of racial violence, you may see things like a giant cross and fantasy racism as two things you'd rather not see go together. Add in the fact that most of the student body in this particular scene are screaming for his blood, and it just gets a little bit too real here. Oh shit, did I hit the serious button again? Let's just flip this stupid switch back on. Derp! So taking all this into consideration, between the characters and the dark twists and turns that are both pretty unsavory, they're roughly the same. A Prophet, checklist please.
So, in short order, we've got the girl who has locked down superpowers like Mocha, the troublemaker who looks like she's 10, the one with the giant jubblies who ends up harming the main character, and the average but cleany one. The shows featured the usual screwball comedy, a fairly decent budget to play with, and dubs that don't hurt my ears, but don't blow minds. And then right in the middle of things, they get pointlessly dark and violent out of left field.
On top of all that, both shows have second seasons that I don't care to bother with. In all seriousness, though, when I say these types of shows are formulaic, and I can have them rattled off down to a T, we got problems. These types of shows have all the same problems, and it's all tied into how formulaic they are. Because for all the good they might try to do with the show itself, the formula they're following is still kind of crap. You can add a different flavor to cookies, but if the recipe calls for horse snot and stale Cheez-Its, you're still going to have cookies that look like a biohazard.
Mind rolling that one back a bit? I think you lost the cheap seats.
What I'm getting at is, no matter how you dress these shows up, no matter how good or bad the animation is, no matter how good the dubcast may be, or how funny the comedic bits are, you're still sitting on what amounts to the same show. But then I guess if the folks over there can stand to watch the same minute and a half of Kamen Rider transforming and finishing off the bad guy, week in and week out, it's not all that shocking. I think at the end of the day, I find being safe far more offensive than anything else a show can do. If a show has a crappy dub or a really badly executed premise, then it could be a whole hell of a lot worse. But when it's just safe and breaks no ground and does nothing new for the genre, it's just a waste of celluloid. Or data, since it's all digital now. Not that every show must innovate, no, but there are ways that you can take the same well-tread premise and spin it differently. Kore wa Zombie Desu Ka and Rosario+Vampire do neither of these. They are utterly disposable, due to be forgotten by the time next year's iteration of Magical Girlfriend Harem Show pops up.
You know, I watched both of these shows on recommendations from my friends, and I've come to the conclusion that I should probably stop listening to them. Now, what I really need is something that'll really cleanse my palate. And I think what I've got is... yeah, I think this will do nicely.
Yeah. It's, oh god. I'm really worried about the dog.
I'm picturing a real sick monster dog.
It's angry.
Yeah.
Particularly at me. But also a bit of you, Jonathan, because I've been showing it videos of your face laughing.